Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Yasoda-dulal Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Dadati Swapadartikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Radhanath Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupa Sagrajata Sakala Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Radha Sakala Radhika Shri Vishakha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Bhakta Kancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishapanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanshakavalpakalvyasya Vipasindhu Yadevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Sakarine. I am sincerely grateful to be among each of you this evening. Thank you. Thank you for taking your precious time in the heat of the New York summer 2023 for joining us at Bhakti Center. As I was walking here, I think I walked 3 blocks to come here. I was remembering in December when I was walking here, it was so cold. And everyone was hoping it would get warm. So the nature of this world, everything is always changing. And very rarely are things just right. It's our nature to want to be comforted. But happiness is different experience than comfort. Comfort is a thing of the body and the mind. We like to be in comfortable mental situations. But we know for sure that it is not going to last. Nothing lasts. In this world, by the power of time, everything and everyone is changing. So happiness is when we find a purpose in life, an experience in life that is able to adjust to whatever comforts or discomforts come our way. So whether it was below zero in December, or whether it's 100 degrees or whatever it may be in July, walking to the Bhakti Center, the happiness was why I was coming, where I was going and why I was going there. When we have material attachments that are not in harmony with this higher purpose of life, then it is like an anchor in a boat. I was just hearing one of my guru's favorite stories. He heard it from his guru, the Bhakti Center July. And the story goes in Bengal, India, there was a very glorious marriage ceremony that was scheduled. The bride and the groom, the husband, the wife, they were from different villages. The marriage was going to be in the bride's village. They made so many wonderful arrangements. And especially in those days, but even some people in these days, timing is very important, especially auspicious timings, to start at a certain moment of the day. A certain place where the constellations are in a certain order and the sun is in a certain place in the sky. And what to speak of you for such an extravagant marriage? There was so much money being spent. And you don't want to pay people more than you have to. So everything was timed just. So the members of the groom's party, they came on their way to a river, a very wide river. They got on a boat. And not only crossing the river to the other side, but they had to go quite a distance downstream also. So evening time, they went on the boat. And in those days, this is several hundred years ago, there was no motor boats, there was rowboats. So the boatman said, I know this river, I've been on it all my life. You can all go to sleep and relax. And first thing in the morning, when the sun rises, we will be at the destination. And we'll be right on time. So they were very happy. And they all went to sleep. The moon was glowing, the stars were sparkling. And they were so much looking forward to the next day. They slept soundly. And in the morning, roosters began to crow and birds began to sing. And everyone woke up as the sun was rising. They looked around and noticed the boat, and all of the people on the boat were in the exact same place that they were the night before. They hadn't gone anywhere. They were very angry. They were confused. First, confusion. And you know how the human mind reacts to circumstances that are against our expectations. First, bewildered. We're not there. We're still here. What are we doing here? Why are we still here? And then they became angry. They started shouting at the boatman. The boatman looked around, and he was even more bewildered than them. Because through the entire night, with all of his might, he was rowing and rowing and rowing. Because it was dark, he just assumed he was reaching his destination. 8 hours of rowing. And he looked around, he was in the same place. he was so disturbed, so confused. And then one of the people who were on the boat, as they were all in a disturbed state, happened to notice we forgot to pull up the anchor. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful verse spoken by little Prahlad, 5-year-old child, who was liberated, great devotee of the Lord. Radhanath Krishna Paradas. That however much effort we make for spiritual progress, whether it be the people we're with, through our spiritual practices, through our morality, through our piety, you can't really make progress as long as this anchor of material ego, material attachment, misconception, trying to be happy in a world where happiness is so vulnerable and temporary. We can't really make progress unless we're conscious that we have to let go so that we can actually take shelter of that higher power. And that begins with knowledge and the application of knowledge. The knowledge of who I am and what I really want, what I want, not what the flickering mind is wanting from moment to moment, or the senses are wanting from moment to moment. But who am I and what do I really want? Anandamayi, the nature of the soul, the true self, is to be happy. In fact, to be blissful. Bliss is a certain type of spiritual happiness that we can say the word, but what it really means is something that's inconceivable unless we're experiencing it. But that's our nature. Our nature is joy. And therefore, we're always looking for joy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, establishes as a foundation for all the incredible knowledge he was about to impart with the principle Yasoda-dulal Krishna. That wherever there's life is the presence of the soul, the jiva. And the nature of every soul is to experience the joy of serving God. But actually, what does it mean to serve Krishna? Because we serve someone when they need what we want, or what they parent serves a child by protecting and providing. We serve each other to give each other happiness. But does God need to be happy? If he's the supreme source of everything that exists, he's already happy. He's such an ananda. His body is every aspect of God is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of the highest happiness. It's the reservoir of all happiness. So what does it mean to serve God? Samsadhya Hari Krishna. To serve is to please. And Krishna tells in Gita, Bhaktyanani Yashatya Aham Evam. That you can only understand me when I reveal myself to you. And I only reveal myself according to your love. To serve God really means to love God. What other service does God want from us? The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalokamai, that I am the proprietor of everything that exists. Aham Bija Pradhan. The source, the father, the mother, every living being. Everything within all universes is composed of the energy of the Supreme, of Krishna. Nothing is separate ever. The only real separation of anything from Krishna, from God, is our awareness of its connection. There's a beautiful analogy. Somebody asked our Guru Srila Prabhupada, are you God? And he said, I'm a servant of God. But in order to connect to God, we connect to God through associating with those who love God. He used the example of all of this electricity, whether it be the lights or at the moment the air conditioner seems to be kind of working. Whatever electricity, it's coming from a power plant where they're producing the electricity. But there's a wire. It may be a copper wire. Now the copper wire is the electricity, but at the same time, it's not the electricity. Because if you disconnect the copper wire from the power plant, it's just copper wire. It doesn't make the air conditioner or the lights or anything work. It's just a piece of wire. But when it's connected, then the power of the powerhouse is coming through that wire. So is the wire the powerhouse? No. And yes. No, it isn't, because in and of itself, it's wire. But yes, it is, because of the connection. So similarly, when we actually develop this real attitude of a servant of God, through that yoga, through that connection, and Bhakti Yoga means connecting through love. Bhakti is love. It is sometimes translated as devotion. But actual devotion is love. Sabaya kong sang karo dharmo yatho bhaktir the supreme dharma is bhakti. That's what this verse is saying. And what is bhakti? It's that service that is offered with unconditional, unmotivated love. That is the one and only experience that can satisfy the heart. Because it's our nature. And yoga is that which connects, that which reunites. To reunite us with that dormant, eternal love that is within us is bhakti yoga. We're serving either with love or with the intent to love. Because for most of us, we're really fooling ourselves and everybody around if we say, I love God. But we can honestly and earnestly aspire with the intent to love God. And if we're serving in that mood, the intent to love is an expression of love. Because it's who we are and what we can do. We either have to fool ourselves or lose all hope if we think, how can I serve God with love? I don't have that love. I have ego. I have selfishness. I have so many sensual and mental demands. Everything is God's property, but still I'm thinking in terms of I and mine, and I want more, and I need more. And everyone is God's child. But some people, I really don't like them. And a lot of people really don't like me. So how am I supposed to serve God with love when love is unconditional, uninterrupted, pure? But bhakti, the path of bhakti, gives all of us infinite hope, because if we serve with the intent to love, to that intent we are connected. That copper wire of our identity is connected to God, and it actually can carry the current of Krishna's love into our life and actually empower us to be a medium of that love for others. But there's that anchor. No matter how much we try, it seems like that anchor kind of, I think I'm really making a lot of progress, but after some time, the sun rises and it seems like I'm in the same place. How is that? Why is that? It's actually very auspicious when we recognize. Because when we recognize that we still have that anchor, that we haven't brought it up yet, we can act upon it. When the boatman was in darkness, he really thought he was making progress. But when the light came out, it was actually a really good thing. He understood why he wasn't making progress, instead of under the illusion that he was making progress. And sometimes darkness is very comfortable, and light reveals where I'm at and what I have to do. So much conflict, so much fighting, so much anxiety, so much depression, greed, anger, arrogance, lust, envy. These qualities, for many, they're so deeply seated within our consciousness. And it's actually beyond our control to remove them. This is a sacred principle of bhakti, that it requires a higher power to keep that connection. And that power is the power of grace, the power of compassion. And when we humble ourselves to take shelter of that power with all sincerity, with a clear understanding of the need to do so, then we can take very seriously the practice. Without that recognition, the practice itself will not really move us forward. Srila Prabhupada once spoke that philosophy without good character is almost useless. Because what we learn and what we're practicing needs to be harmonized with our actual purpose. Krishna, or God, is none different than the names of God. This is an eternal truth, especially revealed in the Vedic literatures, scriptures. And what is most emphasized by saints throughout thousands and thousands of years. But as we're chanting, Krishna really reciprocates with our chanting according to how we are serving the holy name of God through our life. Just now on the altar, he's making an offering of food to make the food, offering it to God to make it sacred. Now, does God need our food? But God wants our love. So before we eat food, to take the food that God, the most compassionate type of food, that's most holistic and most respectful to all life forms, to take that food and offer it with love and devotion, the food becomes prasadam, sacred food. What is that? It's like these mantras. It's, and the way the devotee, the priest on the altar, is offering the mantras with devotion, she's like that copper wire. And through her sincerity, the power of God's grace, of God's mercy, through her devotion, enters into the food. And it becomes prasadam, spiritual. And when we eat that food, honor that food, taste that food, according to our state of consciousness, we become infused with that grace, with God's grace. But where's the food coming from? Our beloved Srila Prabhupada would give example, whatever we offer to Krishna, it's like taking a pound full of water from the Ganges River and saying, Mother Ganga, please accept this water. Now, whether we offer a little baby poundful, or whether, like Ananta Govinda Prabhu with his Madonna hands, large quantities of water, doesn't make any difference to Mother Ganga, whether it's a gallon of water or a teaspoon of water. We're receiving it and offering. So it's by the power of Krishna's energy, the sun is shining, that Mother Earth has the power to develop seeds. The rain is falling. All powers that are infinitely beyond our own. But we have choice of how to engage those powers. We take some food and offer it to Krishna, it becomes sacred. And then there's going to be an arti, and you'll see there's a little flame of fire that you offer it. Now, where is that flame coming from? Originally, it's coming from the sun planet. That's the source of fire and heat for our universe here. So how large is the sun planet? How much heat, how much fire? And Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, I am the light of the sun. The sun is just an insignificant manifestation of God's light. And that little flame is an utterly insignificant proportion of the sun's energy. And the supreme controller, who is the source of all the suns and all the planets and every living being, is personally standing on the altar as Radha Murlidhar and Sri Gaurachandra. And we're thinking, how could the infinite, all-pervading, absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, of the spiritual world, everything that exists are energies emanating from him. How could he be standing on a little wooden altar on 25 First Avenue on the Lower East Side of New York City? To understand that is to understand God's nature. Krishna can fully manifest himself in any form, at any time, anywhere. Why? To give us an opportunity to experience the presence of Radhanath, to give us an opportunity to utilize whatever we have to serve, to give us an opportunity to absorb ourselves with the intent to love. In a few minutes, she'll be offering this little flame, which is such an insignificant manifestation of the supreme gifts that God is giving us. A simple question. If the priest is thinking, God, just see Krishna, I am so great. I am offering you this flame. Whether it's a big flame or a little flame. Is that service? When we think our service is great, it means we're really disconnected. Actual service, whether we're offering a little flame, whether we're offering a drop of water, or we're offering tens and millions or tens and billions of dollars. The spirit of service is, it's not mine, it's yours. The spirit of service is, I'm not great because I'm offering it. You're great because it's so small and you're willing to receive it. That is where the seed of love begins to sprout within our heart, according to how we recognize Krishna is the intelligence of the intelligence, the strength of the strong, the wealth of the wealthy, the ability in every being. We may have an ability of a very, very acute philosophical, photographic mind and intelligence. We may have the ability of somehow or other able to remember the Maha Mantra, and that's about all. It really doesn't make much difference to Krishna. We may have the ability to offer some flowers. We may have the ability to build magnificent temples. We may have the ability to dance beautifully, or we may be so old that we need a wheelchair to move. Does it really make any difference to Krishna? But whether on the wheelchair or whether we're dancing in most beautiful ways, if we recognize, I'm just offering to Krishna the best I can of just a tiny little offering of what belongs to God. That recognition is love. She will be offering that little flame. And that little flame, it only lasts for a few minutes. Then it goes out. What is the value of that little flame? The value is my heart's love I'm offering in the form of this diva, this little lamp to you. And I'm not just offering it for my love, but I'm offering it
on behalf of everyone who wants to love you. I'm offering it with the intent that you will bless the whole world, my Lord. When an offering is made with that humility, with that sincerity, even though the flame may only last a few minutes, the light of that offering is eternal. Because anything done in an intent to love Krishna is eternal. Neha Vikramana Sosti Pratyavayo Navit Swapramasya Dharmasya Jayate. Krishna tells anything that is offered with a sincere intent of devotion is never lost. It's forever. That little flame, we're offering it with humility. Krishna, I'm taking the love that you're given to me and offering it back for your pleasure and for the well-being of others. Krishna declares that offering is eternal. From what our eyes see, the flame is there and it's gone. But on a deeper level, that light burns forever. When we're chanting God's names, or anything we're doing in service with sincere devotion, to the degree we're absorbed in that moment, Yayigatamam prapadyante. Krishna says, I reveal myself according to how you're taking shelter in what you're giving. Bhakti is so inconceivably special. We're taking shelter when we're giving something. Usually the idea of shelter is you're taking something. But when we're giving, we're receiving. When we're giving with sincere humility and devotion, we're receiving shelter. So during kirtan, if we're chanting and our mind is very somewhere else, then there's some benefit. But if we're taking shelter, if we're absorbing ourselves, Trinada Visunicena Tador Ibasation, Amani Namanadena Kirtan Yasoda. Lord Chaitanya taught us the method of chanting in such a way that it is forever is to aspire to be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant, forgiving than a tree, eager to offer all respect to others, and not to demand or expect respect for us. In this spirit, we can chant eternally, forever. And considering that an act of sincere devotion is never lost, and considering Namachintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasvigraha, that Krishna is not different than the names of Krishna. God is not different than the names of God. When we absorb ourselves in a humble spirit as an offering of our body, mind, and souls when we chant, absorbed in that chanting, that one moment, each moment of reciting Krishna's names, we are literally entering into eternity. That moment is eternity. Because Krishna is eternity. God is eternal. If we're taking shelter of the eternal, that moment is eternity. Just 3 days ago, one wonderful little girl, she passed away. I first met her, I believe it was earlier this year, here at the Bhakti Center. Her mother brought her to meet me. She's 8 years old. She had terminal brain cancer. And there was no chance on the physical level. But yet she was smiling, and she was just grateful. Her mother was crying, and her mother was also grateful. And she loved Krishna. She wanted to love Krishna. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Florida, and the mother brought the little 8-year-old girl, and we had a wonderful time. The girl was so weak, but yet she just wanted Krishna. She wanted to love Krishna. She wanted to serve Krishna. And even in her weakness, she was smiling. And somebody's having a hard time out there. That's what it's like. It's a wake-up call. When we hear sirens, it's a wake-up call. People are suffering. Her name was Madhuri Radha, little girl. And we chanted together and we spoke together. And her mother asked her to sing. And in her weak state, she began to sing this wonderful song by Bhakti Center July. And she started with such a frail, weak voice. And within a few seconds, her voice was soaring and she was smiling. The whole house was filled with the reverberating vibration of her enthusiasm to sing. And she kept singing and singing and singing. Her mother had to ask her to stop, and she kept singing. So it was just 4 days ago she passed away. Her spirit soul left her little 8-year-old body. And when the news came to me, of course, my heart broke because she was just so innocent, grateful, and special. And you can imagine the consciousness of the mother and father losing an 8-year-old child they love more than anything. But even in that natural pain, something so special. Because each time she chanted the holy names of the Lord, each time she thanked God with a sincere heart, she entered into eternity. And to have those moments of entering eternity are eternal. And whether we physically live for 8 years or 98 years, or even if auspicious 108 years, the same auspiciousness is actually there. There are so many reasons to fear in this world, because anything can happen to anyone at any time. This beautiful prayer reminds us that everything in this world is so vulnerable, like a drop of water on the leaf of a lotus. The nature of a lotus leaf is its very slippery surface. And when water goes on it, if even a little breeze, what to speak of any shaking, any movement of the leaf, and the water slides right off instantly. Everything in life is like the safety of our body, our being alive in this body. There's miseries of the body and mind. There's miseries caused by other living beings. Disease. Anxiety. Family members. Enemy nations. So many reasons. And misery is caused by natural disturbances. Too much heat, too much cold, too much fire, too much water, flooding. Somebody told me, please be careful when you go to dangerous places. That's the Lower East Side of New York. Nobody knows what's going to fall out of one of the windows from the upper floors. Doesn't matter who you are or what you have. Anything could happen to anybody. Fame, money, physical strength. None of these things could influence, could actually protect us from the vulnerabilities. Nor can they protect that or those who we love. Our mothers, our fathers, our children, our property. Everything is vulnerable in this world. So we can be trying to protect ourselves from fear by just building fortresses around our vulnerable condition. But the problem is, however you build up the walls, the vulnerability is inside, outside, and everywhere else. But when we appreciate and recognize that the moments I have, with this little vulnerable life that I have, the idea of being here now, being in the present moment, has so many different levels of realization. In one sense, to be present of the here and now is to seize this moment and create some state of peace and tranquility in our mind. But in bhakti, it goes infinitely deeper than peace and tranquility. To be present at this moment is to surrender our hearts, to take shelter of the grace of God in this moment, and to actually be in the eternal presence of God in this moment. A moment is eternity when we're absorbed in the offering of our intent to love. This is the spirit of kirtan. It's music, we're chanting, but the intent, the spirit. Krishna, because of her devotion, that little flame may be more light than the entire sun. Because light is not a matter of quantity, it's quality in the eyes of God. That 8-year-old little Madhuri Radha, it's so heartbreaking that she's gone. But at the same time, how grateful that Krishna blessed her in such a special way. That in those moments of her 8-year-old life, she entered into eternity. And eternity is not just the eternity of an infinite universe. It's the eternity of the personal love of God. That is bhakti. To connect with that infinite, eternal love. Who are sincere intent. Whoever we are, whatever we have. Offering a little water now. You know, there's the Hudson River, and the East River, and the Atlantic Ocean all around us, and she's offering a little water. It's not the quantity, it's the quality in which it's offered. For Krishna, that the quantity of water in that little conch shell that she's offering, when offered with sincere intent of devotion and love, with sincere will of compassion for others, all the lakes and all the oceans and all the rivers could not fill that conch shell. And when we're disconnected from that, we have a tendency of becoming depressed because we're not doing as good as other people. We become envious. Or if we do more than somebody, we become arrogant. See what I have done. When there's knowledge of the spirit, of what bhakti actually is, and the gift that we've been given to serve. And that they were offering a gallon of water for a teaspoon of Krishna accepts our devotion. If the copper wire is proud, just see what I am doing. It's 95 degrees out there, and I'm keeping everyone cool in the Bhakti Center. The copper wire is thinking, just look at what I am doing. It's simply an illusion. It's the current that's keeping everybody cool. It's the current that's giving us light. In bhakti, being a copper wire in this way means to be connected in a spirit. I'm just grateful that I could be an instrument. But without your grace, what can the copper wire do for anyone? Its value is to the degree it's transferring the energy. To serve, to live with compassion. And this is what the world needs more than anything forever. Is people who are willing to humble themselves to the power of God's grace and use whatever we have and whatever we know and whatever we are to bring the current of Krishna's love and grace to others. In their times of joy, in their times of sorrow. In their times of abundance and their times of need. Thank you very much. He is now offering a flower. And that's a really beautiful flower. What kind of flower is that? Does anyone know the name?
Stargazer. Stargazer.
Huh?
Stargazer.
It's a stargazer flower? You know, whether we know the name of the flower or not, she may not even know the name of the flower, but she's offering it. That flower is going to wilt. In a few days, it's not going to exist. But the offering of that flower is an entrance into a moment of eternity. Because it's connecting with us. And that's the beautiful opportunity we have. Our life is like that. You know, at one time our bodies in this lifetime, they were like a little seed. And then they grew into a little infant baby. And then they started growing more and more. And then they start wilting.
I mean, if you look at me, you'll see that stage of the flower. And eventually, the wilting just, the flower is no longer a flower. But the life form, the life within that flower is eternal. As is the life in the flower of our existence forever. And when we're in the association of people who inspire us, we're all, please let me offer my life like that flower. And that's the perfection of the flower. Not how long it has its fragrance, but that fragrance has been offered in love and devotion to the Lord. As they say, that's love. Thank you so much. We will have kirtan. So whatever I spoke is to try to inspire you that within this kirtan, take shelter of Krishna's presence in the holy name. Absorb ourselves individually and collectively to seek shelter, to offer our hearts with devotion as we're chanting. And in that moment, we can enter into the realm of Krishna's grace. And in that grace, our love is forever.